I never thought my life would unravel so quickly, nor that the simplest gesture would tether me to someone who would alter my fate forever. Back then, I was Natalie Pierce, just another faceless girl drifting through the crowded halls of Pacific Coast High School in Astoria, Oregon. My days were heavy with silence, my shoulders bent under the weight of laughter that was never kind. Jenna Lopez and her friends had turned torment into sport, ripping my dresses, drenching my dorm room with buckets of water, scratching insults into my desk, and tripping me in the hallways while pretending it was an accident. I cried quietly into my pillow at night, too timid to protest, too afraid to fight back. Each insult, each shove, each cruel whisper carved into me until I believed I was nothing but a useless shadow. The worst came on the day of the spring dance. I wore a simple purple dress, nothing glamorous, but it was mine. That evening, Jenna and her clique cornered me behind the auditorium, their nails tearing at the fabric until it hung from me in shreds. The humiliation burned hotter than the ocean wind, and I could not lift my eyes to meet anyone else's. It was not enough for them. They wanted to strip me of every last piece of dignity. They shoved me, jeered, waved their phones in my face as though preparing to capture my misery for the world to see. And in that moment, when I realized that even my body might become their entertainment, I no longer wanted to exist. I slipped away carrying nothing but a small box cutter I had stolen from an art class. I walked to the stretch of woods behind the athletic fields, the wind carrying the smell of salt from the Pacific, my heart pounding as if it wanted to escape before I silenced it forever. I sat under the shadow of the old bleachers, pressed the blade against my wrist, and closed my eyes, ready to dissolve into nothingness. That was when I heard it. A sharp cough, a choking sound, and then a curse muttered under someone's breath. My eyes flew open, my hands trembling. I turned toward the sound, and there she was. Michael Sullivan, the notorious girl everyone called the queen of the school. She was the one who cut classes without fear, who fought with boys twice her size, who lived on the edge of every rumor. Even teachers thought twice before crossing her. And now, unbelievably, she was squatting behind the pile of battered sports equipment, her pink-dyed hair catching the dim light, her cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk, clutching half of a stale steamed bun as if it were treasure. My first instinct was panic. To stumble upon Michael Sullivan in such a private moment felt like stumbling into the lion's den. My knees weakened, my pulse raced. I wondered if she would snap my neck for spying on her. I looked down at the box cutter in my hand and almost laughed bitterly. If I was already ready to die, why was I still afraid of her? My gaze fell on the bun in her hand, dry and crumbly, and before I realized what I was doing, I fumbled inside my bag and pulled out a small jar. My mother's chili sauce. She had pressed it into my hands that morning with a smile, telling me to eat well and try to befriend someone at school. My voice cracked as I lifted the jar toward Michael. "My mom made this," I whispered. "It tastes good with bread, even with something dry like that." Michael froze, her sharp eyes flickering to me, then to the jar, then back to me again. My breath caught in my chest. Slowly, I scooped a spoonful of the sauce and spread it across the bun in her hand. The oil glistened red under the slanting sunlight, flecks of chili and bits of meat glimmering like hidden jewels. She studied me as if deciding whether I was mocking her. Then hunger won. She took a massive bite, and instantly her eyes widened, bright as headlights. "Damn," she muttered with her mouth full. "That's actually good." She devoured the rest of the bun as though she had not eaten a full meal in days. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, watching her eat with reckless abandon, forgetting for a moment her role as the untouchable queen. When she finally wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, she coughed lightly and said almost awkwardly, "I was just skipping lunch to diet, that's all." Her attempt at nonchalance could not mask the oil glistening at the corner of her lips. Tears burned my eyes. I thought of my mother, of her gentle hands packing that jar into my bag, telling me to take care of myself and to try somehow to belong. I had always been invisible, a ghost in crowded hallways, a target for ridicule. Now here I was standing before Michael Sullivan, the girl whose name everyone whispered, offering her a piece of myself. She noticed my tears and scowled. "Why are you crying? Who hurt you? Which class are you in? Who's been messing with you?" Her voice cracked like a whip, and for the first time I felt something sharp cut through my despair. Not fear, but the strange warmth of being defended. 10 minutes later, after I stammered out my story about Jenna Lopez and her friends, Michael, chewed thoughtfully on the last bite of bun slathered in chili, she tilted her head unimpressed. "That's it. You were ready to die over this. Are you some kind of steamed bun fairy?" Her words stung, yet behind the mockery was something else, an acknowledgement, a spark of recognition. I sobbed harder, trying to explain that everyone would see the videos, that the shame would crush me. She grabbed my collar suddenly, her gaze burning into me, and I froze. "So what if they see?" She scoffed. "What's the worst they can say?" "You don't have boobs, please. Yours aren't even as big as my fist. Anyone watching would just think you're some guy in a dress." It was crude, humiliating, but there was a strange, raw honesty in her words. For once, the insult did not cut the way Jenna's cruelty did. Michael was not mocking to destroy me. She was challenging me to see myself differently, to stop cowering. Her grip loosened and her smirk curved like a lifeline. In that instant, something inside me shifted. I had been ready to bleed out alone behind the bleachers, to vanish without a trace. Instead, I found myself tethered to Michael Sullivan by a jar of chili sauce, my tears and her reckless appetite. It was the beginning of everything, though I could not know it then. At that moment, all I knew was that I was no longer invisible. Someone had seen me. Someone had stood up, however roughly, and said my life was worth something. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe it was. Tears streamed down my face until I could hardly breathe, my chest heaving with the kind of sobs that seemed to rise from a place deeper than my lungs. Michael rolled her eyes as if she had no patience for weakness. Yet something flickered in her expression, a flash of decision. She pushed herself up, dusted off her hands, and jerked her head. "Come on," she said. Her tone was final, and before I could question what she meant, I found myself trailing behind her as she strode back toward the main building. The classroom buzzed with laughter when we arrived. Jenna Lopez sat perched on her desk like she owned the place, surrounded by her clique, smiling that cruel practice smile that had tormented me for years. The room quieted the instant Michael Sullivan entered her presence, rolling through the space like a storm. A group of younger kids she had picked up along the way flanked her like a living wall of defiance. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to falter. Without hesitation, Michael swung herself onto Jenna's desk, her long legs dangling her gaze sharp enough to slice through steel. "Phone, now." Her voice cracked like thunder. Jenna paled, her bravado collapsing as fast as a sandcastle against the tide. Michael." "Wait, this is a misunderstanding, I swear." Her words tripped over themselves. Michael's hand shot out, clutching Jenna's collar and jerking her forward until their faces were inches apart. Jenna squealed, nearly losing her balance. Michael snatched the phone from her trembling hands and scrolled with the detached coldness of a judge. "Delete them," she ordered. Jenna fumbled with the device, tears springing to her eyes as she erased every photo, every video, even clearing the trash while the class held its breath. Michael tilted her head toward me. "Come here." My legs shook as I stepped closer, barely daring to look at Jenna, who was still shaking. "Hit her," Michael said simply. I froze. My body locked up as if my bones had turned to stone. I couldn't. Not really. My fingers twitched, and in the end, all I could manage was the gentlest tap against Jenna's forehead, like brushing dust from a window. Michael's groan of exasperation filled the room. "Pathetic," she muttered. Her hands flew to her head as if she wanted to tear out her own hair. With a snarl, she dragged Jenna out of the seat herself, then turned on the rest of the clique. One by one, she slapped them across the face, her movements fast and merciless, a spinning force that left no doubt about who commanded this school. Not one of them dared resist. It was brutal, shameless, and oddly exhilarating to watch. Finally, Michael tossed her chin toward me, her voice ringing loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's mine now. Natalie Pierce is with me. Understand?" The silence that followed was heavier than any insult I had ever endured. Eyes that once mocked me now shifted with something like fear or respect or both. It was dizzying the way the world had turned in a single afternoon. But Michael wasn't finished. Later that week, she gathered her crew, a colorful army of misfits with hair dyed every shade of neon-ripped jeans hanging by threads and tattoos inked across their knuckles. They circled me like a jury, evaluating with exaggerated seriousness. One of them gripped my chin and tilted my face left and right. "She's not bad looking," he declared. "But her vibe is all wrong." Michael smirked. "Time for a makeover." They pulled out a trunk filled with absurd clothes, skull-printed shirts, shredded jeans, oversized sunglasses, jackets so bright they looked radioactive. Before I knew it, I had been shoved into one of the outfits. When I emerged hunched over in humiliation, I felt like a plucked bird trembling in front of hawks. Head up, chest out. "Swing your arms like you own the street," Michael instructed, striding forward with a swagger that belonged on a movie screen. She tossed her pink hair back, her hands slicing the air as if daring anyone to challenge her. I tried to imitate her, stumbling through each step as laughter erupted around me. "Good enough," she declared finally. "Let's go show you off." They called it shaking up the block. We walked through 8 grimy alleys under the blazing Oregon sun. Michael leading the way as local troublemakers paused mid-smoke to nod respectfully. "Evening, Michael," they muttered, their eyes wide. She barely acknowledged them, flicking her nose upward as though she were royalty accepting tributes. My feet blistered inside cheap sneakers, my throat parched until every swallow scraped like sandpaper. At last, Michael pointed toward a small juice shop. In she commanded. We crowded around the counter. 1 lemonade, she told the cashier, then stabbed the straw through the lid and thrust it toward me. First sip goes to the rookie. I took the smallest sip imaginable, my lips barely wetting. Then the cup was passed from hand to hand, each member gulping greedily until only melting ice clinked at the bottom. Michael drained the last swallow with a satisfied sigh, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. My stomach growled loudly enough for them all to hear. "Hungry?" she asked, already scrolling on her phone. Seconds later, she barked, "Delivery." "Hot pot, $9.99. Let's move." We crowded around the tiny pot when it arrived, 5 sets of chopsticks darting in like predators, each of us snagging exactly our portion. Not a drop of oil was left when we finished. I stared at the empty bowl, wondering how they managed to survive on so little. Michael smirked, her hand heavy on my shoulder. "Listen up," she declared, her voice carrying like a rallying cry. Michael Sullivan, believe in loyalty. From now on, Natalie Pierce is one of us. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Her gaze swept across the table, sharp and unyielding. "We bully others. No one bullies us." A chorus of agreement shook the air. For the first time in my life, I felt the strange warmth of belonging. Then Michael turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "Training starts now. Every day you're going to insult Jenna Lopez. Just 1 sentence. If your mouth stays soft, you and I are done." My pulse spiked with panic. The very thought of speaking against Jenna, even in the smallest way, froze me. But Michael was relentless. The next day, she shoved me forward. I stood, shaking, my voice quivering. Jenna, please don't bully me anymore." Michael slapped her own forehead, groaning. "Are you declaring war or begging for mercy?" My blood pressure just hit the ceiling. The following day, she forced me again, and this time all I managed was, "Why, you're mean." It was laughable, pitiful. Even yet, Michael's smirk hinted at something else. Maybe she saw a seed inside me that I had never dared to water. Maybe she believed she could drag courage out of me, 1 insult at a time. And so the lessons began each day, a strange blend of humiliation and empowerment. I was no longer invisible. I was Michael Sullivan's rookie, her project, her shadow in purple dresses and borrowed swagger. The world was starting to watch me differently, and for the first time, I wondered if I could learn to watch myself differently too. Michael's wig had slipped sideways in her fury, and for a moment the sight was so ridiculous I almost laughed, though I bit it back. "Are you insulting her or whining like a baby?" she snapped at me on the 3rd day of my training. My cheeks flushed hot, but I forced myself to meet her eyes and mutter, "What are you staring at?" The words were clumsy, shaky, but they were words of defiance. Michael clapped me on the shoulder with exaggerated satisfaction. "Progress. For that you earn a knock on the head." She rapped her knuckles gently against my skull, as though awarding me a medal. By the 4th day, when Jenna tried to roll her eyes and dismiss me in the hallway, Michael all but shoved me forward. My voice cracked as I stammered, "Roll them again, and I'll—" The rest withered away, but my glare must have been convincing enough because Jenna recoiled, her bravado dissolving for just a moment. Michael's reaction was absurd. She burst into mock tears and pulled me into a crushing embrace. "My girl is growing up," she sobbed dramatically, finally learning to hold her head high. I stiffened in her arms, embarrassed, but some small spark inside me glowed with a strange pride. From then on, Jenna Lopez would dart out of my path whenever I appeared, scuttling 3 steps back as though I carried some curse. For the first time, I realized that maybe being branded a troublemaker had its perks. Yet not everyone was convinced. Whispers trailed behind me like smoke. "She's nothing but Michael Sullivan's little lapdog," some sneered. Michael heard one of them and only laughed, slinging an arm around my shoulders. When I rise, she declared, her grin sharp, "Even my dog becomes a guard hound." Michael's dreams were as oversized as her swagger. She wanted to be the underground queen of the whole coast, a ruler of the streets of Astoria, even if her so-called kingdom at the time was nothing more than a handful of alleys and a crew of misfits. One evening, she invited me to her home, and I followed her down a dim stairwell into a basement apartment that looked ready to collapse. The iron bed squeaked under piles of knockoff designer clothes. The desk wobbled with each touch, and across the cracked wall someone had scrawled 4 bold words in black marker: "Rule the Coast City." It was messy and worn, but for me it felt like a sanctuary. No one here would lock me in a bathroom or drench my bed with buckets of water. Here I could breathe. That night, we lay side by side on the narrow bed, the air thick with the smell of dust and detergent. Michael sat cross-legged with a video game console, cursing at the screen while her thumbs flew. When she caught me staring, she kicked lightly at my leg. "Stop daydreaming. Do worksheet 53. If you get into college, our crew levels up. From now on, we only recruit from universities." She grabbed my pen and scribbled beneath the slogan on the wall, "Natalie Pierce will get into college." The letters wobbled and smudged, yet the sight of them filled me with a warmth so foreign it hurt. My throat tightened. No one had ever written my name next to a dream before. By the end of the month, our wallets were as dry as the wind off the ocean. We lived on stale buns until even the jar of chili sauce scraped empty. Michael rose one morning and announced, "Come on, we're upgrading our lifestyle." I blinked. "But we have no money." She grinned, tossing her hair. "Who needs money? Follow me." She marched us to the gleaming mall downtown, the air conditioning icy enough to raise goosebumps. Lights shimmered on marble floors as though we had entered another world. Michael led me straight to the basement supermarket, where samples abounded. Head up, chest out, she ordered, "We're not begging, we're tasting." She shoved a cracker into my mouth, then grabbed pastries, yogurt cups, little bites of everything. By the time we circled back, our stomachs were full. Then she dragged me upstairs into a high-end cosmetics store. We spritzed perfumes until the air was heavy, with clashing scents, dabbed powders and lipsticks across our faces until we looked like garish paintings. We stumbled out laughing, smelling like a parade of contradictions. At last, she stopped before a giant mirror wall and tugged me into a pose, our hands slicing through the air in exaggerated gestures. She shouted for me to twirl, as though we were stars in a slow-motion action movie, Queens of the Mall. When it was over, we collapsed against each other, giddy with the kind of joy that only thieves of moments could feel. That night, laughter gave way to shouting. I woke to the sound of a man's voice, slurred and bitter. Michael's father, drunk again, staggered in his rage, filling the tiny room. "Worthless brat," he spat. "It's your fault I lost at cards." Michael's retort was instant, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Funny, last time you won it was thanks to your ancestors' blessing, wasn't it? Maybe blame your own rotten luck." They screamed at each other for 10 relentless minutes. insults flying like knives, spit raining down, as though war had broken out in that cramped space. I cowered in the corner, waiting for blows that never came. Instead, with a final curse, her father slammed a handful of bills on the table and collapsed onto the floor, snoring before his head even hit the ground. Michael scooped up the money with a triumphant grin. "Would you look at that?" she laughed. The old man must have had a lucky night. Sharing the spoils for once. She counted the bills with glee while her father's snores rattled the walls. Then she turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "Come on, tonight we feast." We ordered hot pot loaded with beef instead of plain vegetables, eggs, with extra yolks, bubble tea for each of us. I tried to protest, whispering that we should save some, but she only clamped a glittery clip into my hair and fixed another into her own. "Live every moment, Natalie. We only get one life." Her words lit something fragile inside me. For the first time, I felt like maybe life wasn't something to endure, but something to clutch, messy and imperfect, yet alive. I clung to that thought as we carried our drinks through the neon-lit streets, but fate never let Michael rest for long, because just as we turned the corner into a boutique, laughter spilling between us, we ran headlong into Jenna Lopez, dressed in designer silk, and smirking like the devil had just granted her a wish. Jenna Lopez strutted out of the boutique with a designer bag dangling from her wrist, her chin lifted high as though the world were beneath her. Her eyes flicked to the 2-for-1 bubble teas in our hands, and her mouth curled into a sneer. "Rats from the gutter," she hissed. The insult barely finished leaving her lips before Michael tilted her cup and let the milk tea pour straight over Jenna's freshly styled hair. Tapioca pearls slid down her cheeks like black tears dripping into the collar of her blouse. Jenna shrieked, clutching her head. "Your breath is filthier than your words." Michael snapped her tone, scalding. "What, forget to brush your teeth this morning after breakfasting on garbage?" The pearls clung to Jenna's wet skin as she flailed, shrieking about her 20 million dong handbag. "You'll pay for this, Michael. I'll have the police on you." "This bag is ruined," she wailed, plucking at the soaked straps with trembling fingers. Before Michael could retort, a saleswoman stepped out from the boutique, her arms crossed. Her sharp gaze pinned Jenna. "Young lady, watch your mouth. You didn't buy that bag here. You've been trying things on for 2 hours, mooching on our free snacks, and now you walk out parading a fake." The silence was suffocating. The saleswoman sneered. "That bag screams knockoff from a mile away." Michael doubled over, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. All that time pretending to be some high-class debutante, and it's all counterfeit. Even your crown as beauty queen must be self-appointed. Look at you, dripping like a drowned rat. Then look at Natalie. Before I could protest, Michael yanked me forward, tilting my chin left and right. Natural face, clean skin, pure as the ocean tide. "She outshines you 800 streets to 1. Jenna pointed at us with trembling hands, her voice cracking. You'll regret this. Just wait." And with that, she stumbled away, tapioca still sliding down her head, leaving behind a trail of humiliation. Michael spat on the ground, her grin sharp. "Let her wait. I don't fear fakes." I thought maybe Jenna would retreat after that lick her wounds in silence. I should have known better. A month before the college entrance exams, she struck again. It was late, the stairwell dimly lit after night study hall. My arms ached with the weight of textbooks stacked high against my chest. Then it came the shove. hard and sudden. Pain exploded in my shoulder as I crashed to the ground, books scattering like broken glass across the concrete. A familiar perfume lingered in the air. Jenna Lopez. Before I could even rise, Michael stormed up the stairs like a hurricane. She grabbed Jenna, slamming her to the ground, her fists raining down with a fury that echoed through the entire building. Each punch sliced the air, the sound of skin meeting skin reverberating like thunder. Jenna's screams pierced the night. Michael's lost it. Someone gasped from the shadows. "She's going to kill her." My chest seized with terror. Pain radiated through my shoulder until I could barely breathe, but I forced myself to crawl forward. "Michael, stop. Please. If something happens, it'll be too late." She froze, panting. Her fists trembling inches from Jenna's face. Her eyes flicked to me. My skin was pale. My lips already tinged blue sweat soaking my hairline. The fire in her gaze guttered out, replaced by fear. "Damn it, Natalie," she whispered. Then she shoved Jenna aside and crouched in front of me, her hands surprisingly gentle as she lifted me onto her back. "Hold on. We're getting to the hospital." She sprinted through the gates, her breath-ragged sweat pouring down her temple. Each step jolted my injured shoulder until my vision blurred, but her voice was steady in my ear. "Almost there. Just hold on." At the emergency desk, a doctor pressed against my shoulder. White-hot pain stole my breath, and I nearly passed out. "Possible fracture," he announced. "She needs x-rays immediately. Pay the deposit first." Michael dug frantically through her bag, pulling out a battered phone with a cracked screen. She checked app after app, card after card. Her jaw clenched. "Altogether 300 yuan," she muttered. Her curse was low and bitter. "Not enough. Forget it," I whispered weakly. "I'll rest at home. Bones heal on their own. We don't have the money." Her roar silenced me. "Shut up. You're staying. I'll handle it." She snatched the bill from my hand, stormed to the cashier, and slammed every coin and note she had onto the counter. The x-rays confirmed the worst a fractured shoulder hospitalization required. My stomach dropped when I saw the 4-digit deposit on the form. "We can't," I whispered, panic choking me. "We'll never afford it." Michael shoved me gently back onto the bed, her expression hard as steel. "I told you not to worry. Stay put." Then she turned, her jaw set, her fists clenched as if ready to punch through the wall itself. I knew that look. She was about to do something reckless, something dangerous, because for the first time in my life, someone had decided I was worth saving no matter the cost. And that someone was Michael Sullivan. Michael left the hospital room without another word, her back straight and her stride fierce as though she were marching into a battle no one else could see. An hour later, she returned panting hard, her hair damp with sweat. In her hands was a wad of cash. She didn't explain, didn't hesitate. She dropped it at the admissions desk and demanded my paperwork be processed. My heart hammered. "Michael, where did you get that money?" Her eyes flickered away. "Don't ask." A terrible thought clawed at me. You didn't rob someone, did you?" She whipped her head toward me, her glare sharp. "What do you take me for? Then you didn't sell yourself." My voice cracked with horror, my mind swamped by the dark headlines of girls forced into desperate bargains. Michael barked out a curse and smacked the back of my head lightly. "Shut up. I'm untouchable. No one lays a finger on me. But when she turned her arm, I saw it, an ugly bruise blooming across her skin. My breath caught. She waved it off with a grin. Relax, I'm rich now. You didn't know, did you? These days blood is worth a fortune. I've got strong veins and universal type. Easy money. She mimed flipping bills, pretending she was counting her earnings. The realization hit me like a blade. My chest burned as I shouted, "You sold your blood!" My voice rose so loud the nurse looked over. That's blood, Michael. Your life. Do you even realize what you've done? My tears spilled uncontrollably. She faltered for half a second, but then tilted her chin, trying to look smug. What's the big deal? They say donating blood is honorable. Good for circulation, too. I'm practically a public servant now. You idiot, I sobbed. You reckless, stupid, infuriating idiot. The words poured out of me like a flood breaking through a dam. I called her names between hiccups, my chest aching so much I could hardly breathe. Michael blinked at me, stunned. Her hands fluttered awkward and uncertain, then clumsily wiped at my face. Damn, Natalie! You've got a talent. You freeze up when you're supposed to insult Jenna, but when it comes to me, you spit fire like a rap battle. Every word on beat. I cried harder, my tears and snot mixing into a humiliating mess. Quit bawling, she muttered. It's not like I died. You're acting like the world's ending. But her voice had softened, and her hand patted my back in uneven circles until my breathing steadied. Why? I whispered, finally, my throat raw. Why treat me like this? Her eyes darted away. Because you're mine. That's loyalty. That's the code. Do you do this for everyone? I pressed, my gaze still wet. She scowled. What am I, a blood bank? Of course not. So it's just me. The words slipped out before I could stop them, laced with something fragile, almost hopeful. She groaned and tugged at her hair. Fine, fine. Just you. Happy now. God, you're annoying. Lie down before I smack you again. Days later, the police called both families in. Jenna Lopez had pressed charges, crying about Michael's brutality. I told the officers everything Jenna had done every time she locked me in the bathroom, every cruel prank, every shove. I listed the dates, the details, the witnesses. My words were clear, organized, undeniable. The police confirmed both sides had committed assault, but Jenna's long record of bullying stood out. Still, the officers urged reconciliation. The exams are coming. You're both students. It's better to settle this quietly. I bowed my head. Yes, I agree to settle. I just want Michael released. Michael slammed her fist against the table. Settle. Hell no. Lock me up. Free food, free bed. I'll come out stronger, a hero. The room froze. Jenna sobbed loudly, pleading with her parents. I don't want to go to jail. Mommy, Daddy, help me. Michael jabbed a finger at her. Put her in with me. I'll give her special treatment, I swear. Jenna shrieked, pale as chalk, clutching at her mother's sleeve. Her parents, humiliated, struck her across the face right there in front of the officers. I couldn't help it. I stared at Michael, torn between exasperation and awe. She was outrageous, terrifying, and yet somehow the only person who had ever made me feel protected. And for the first time, I wondered what lines I might be willing to cross if it meant standing beside her. Michael's father cursed up a storm when he heard about the police case, but I caught the sly way his thumb lifted as he glanced at her, a crooked gesture of pride. In the end, Thanks to heavy pressure from the school and the looming college entrance exams, both sides reluctantly agreed to a truce. I hadn't even been in the hospital for a full week before I begged to return to class. Michael had no choice but to play full-time nursemaid, trailing me like a shadow, grabbing every bag before I could lift it, insisting I not touch anything with my right arm. Compared to me, Jenna Lopez had it worse. Her face was still wrapped in gauze, her arm in a cast, her walk stiff and halting. For once, she looked afraid, ducking her head and stepping aside the moment she saw us approach. But old habits die hard. A few days later, her arrogance bubbled back to the surface. She paraded through the halls, boasting to anyone who would listen. "After exams, I'll be in Europe. My parents already arranged everything. I'll graduate abroad, then take over the family company." Her clique applauded loudly, fawning over her every word. Some classmates murmured admiration, but their eyes flicked toward me with mocking intent. Some people, one of them whispered just loud enough to hear, "No matter how hard they study, we'll still end up as someone's worker, like Natalie. Hanging around with street punks now after graduation, she'll either be in a factory or in a cell." I bent my head lower over my practice exam, refusing to let my hands tremble. Michael, however, turned into a drill sergeant. Every night she forced me to study until my head spun. The moment my eyelids sagged, she smacked the back of my chair. "Stay awake. You think I'm here to sing lullabies? Learn it now or no meat in hot pot tonight." Some nights when she saw me drooping, she pushed a few shelled walnuts into my palm. "Eat. Good for your brain." Her tone was gruff, but her gaze lingered with quiet worry. When the day of the exams finally arrived, Michael fussed like an anxious parent. Outside the gates, she checked my admission ticket over and over, muttering like a grandmother. I laughed softly. "Michael, you're the one whose hands are shaking." She snapped the wallet shut, embarrassed. "Shut up. Just go ace it. Afterward, I'll treat you to dinner." She opened her purse and grimaced at the emptiness. "Cheap barbecue, maybe. That's all I can swing." When I stepped out of the final exam room, sunlight burned across the campus, dazzling and overwhelming. And there she was, waving from the crowd, her grin so wide it seemed to split the afternoon open. Something in my chest tightened. Was this really the end of our 18-year-old selves? Jenna strutted out soon after snapping selfies of her bandaged face, posting about her glamorous European future. I barely noticed. My phone buzzed with a call from home. The rice was ready for harvest. My father's leg had never healed properly from his fall at the construction site. My mother carried the burden of the farm alone. Harvest season determined our entire year's food and income. I hung up and immediately began packing. "I have to go home." Michael slung her bag over her shoulder. "Then I'm coming with you." "You don't have to," I said quickly. "It's exhausting work." She waved a dismissive hand. "Exhausting. Please. Nothing compared to fighting. Show me the power of the working class." The next day, the fields of my hometown stretched golden to the horizon, the air heavy with heat and buzzing insects. Michael's bravado evaporated in the glare of the sun. We dragged sacks of rice to the weigh station, splitting some to sell, laying the rest on the rooftop to dry. She tried to lift one bag on her own face, beet red arms trembling, the sack refusing to budge. She cursed loudly. "This thing's glued to the ground." Finally, she gave up on brute strength and tried to drive the tractor. How different can it be from bumper cars? She shouted, climbing into the seat. Moments later, the machine lurched sideways, nearly tipping into a ditch. My scream echoed through the field, while she leapt clear landing in the dirt with a wild laugh. By evening, she was covered in dust, her hair a tangled nest, her clothes streaked with mud. My mother stood on the porch, doubled over with laughter at the sight of this self-proclaimed queen reduced to a farmhand. But Michael never slowed down. She staggered under sacks, wiped sweat from her forehead, and stumbled back for more, fueled by sheer stubbornness. Her body ached, but her pride refused to break. At last, the rooftop was blanketed with golden grain gleaming in the moonlight. The air smelled of earth and harvest, sweet and heavy, the scent of survival. We collapsed side by side, staring at the sky. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. For the first time, I wondered if maybe our futures, however different they seemed, were bound together in ways neither of us could yet imagine. The night breeze swept across the rooftop, carrying away the heat of the day. Michael and I lay side by side on the still warm pile of harvested grain, staring up at a sky thick with stars. "Michael, look," I whispered, pointing upward. "A shooting star." She squinted, searching the heavens. "Where?" "Damn, it's bright. The sky out here is way better than in the city." She drew in a deep breath, then sighed. "That smell, rice. It's incredible." From below, my mother's voice carried up. "Natalie, Michael. Come down, dinner's ready. I made noodles." We hurried downstairs. The kitchen was filled with the rich aroma of sauce and simmered meat. My mother heaped extra slices into Michael's bowl. "Eat up, child. You've worked so hard today. Such a strong, capable girl." Michael's ears turned red. She ducked her head, slurping noodles, quickly murmuring, "Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's delicious." My mother's eyes fell on Michael's tattered jeans, the frayed knees barely holding together. She shook her head. "What are these rags? A young lady can't walk around like this. Wasteful." Before we could protest, she fetched a needle and thread, patching the fabric right there at the table. Michael and I exchanged helpless looks, half laughing, half embarrassed. Then Mom disappeared into her trunk, emerging with a piece of floral cloth. Her old sewing machine whirred to life, and soon 2 simple sundresses lay folded in her lap, smelling faintly of soap and starch. One for each of us. Michael held the dress as though it were something precious, her expression unguarded. She slipped it on awkwardly, and Mom braided her hair into 2 neat plaits that fell against her chest. In the cracked mirror, Michael stared at her own reflection. A girl in a floral dress. Cheeks flushed from the sun hair braided like a child's, her face scrubbed clean of bravado. Innocent, pure. She blinked transfixed as though she'd never seen herself before. "If you don't like it, I can wear it," I murmured. Michael, startled, tugged at the hem and touched the braids with tentative fingers. Her voice was husky. "Natalie, having a mother fuss over you like this, it feels so good." It was then I understood. The tough, foul-mouthed girl who had built walls of fists and fire around herself was inside just a child abandoned too soon. A child branded as unwanted, raised by a gambling addict who never cared. A child who had built armor from her own loneliness. And now, for the first time, someone had placed warmth into her hands. Soon after the exam results were released. To my surprise, Michael was more anxious than I was, pacing the room muttering like a monk. 985, 985, come on. I clicked the mouse. My score lit up the screen, 656. I gasped. Michael screamed louder than I did, spinning me into her arms. 656, Natalie, you genius. Of course you'd make it. Anyone under my protection has to shine. She shook me until my vision blurred, but inside fireworks burst across my chest. Your turn. I grinned, nudging her toward the keyboard. She pulled a face. Why bother? I'll bomb it. Michael, I said firmly. Check. Reluctantly, she typed. The number blinked on screen, 211. She froze. Then she burst out laughing. 211. Perfect, you're 985, I'm 211. We're the ultimate combo. Our gang name, the 985-211 Alliance. Has a ring, doesn't it? I groaned, half amused, half exasperated. Only Michael could turn failure into swagger. Word spread quickly. Jenna's score was barely over 300 too low for even a decent community college. This from the heiress who had boasted about Europe and corporate empires. A few whispered that maybe her family connections would keep her afloat, but the truth was plain: all the privilege in the world couldn't cover the emptiness of her effort. I enrolled in a provincial key university close enough to home that I could still help my family. Michael scoffed but didn't argue. Her dreams lay elsewhere. She still wanted to storm the city, build her empire, make her name ring through every alley and street. But dreams required money, and money was something neither of us had. Still, as we stood side by side on that rooftop one last time, the moonlight soft across the drying rice, I realized something. Whatever roads lay ahead, however far apart they might lead, this bond we had built in sweat and bruises and laughter would not break easily. Because for the first time, I believed in myself. And for the first time, Michael Sullivan had someone who refused to leave her behind. One afternoon, Michael showed up at my dorm, beaming her backpack already slung across her shoulders. Guess what factory workers earn more than college graduates? I've decided I'm off to the plant to tighten bolts. And just like that, she marched out the door. The first months of college swept me up in classes, assignments, and late-night study groups. Still, I worried. One evening, I texted her, Michael, "How's the factory job?" Her reply came much later. Didn't tighten a single bolt. I tightened my boss's jaw. Instead, got fired, heading south. Heard. There's money to be made. My stomach nodded. Where, doing what? She brushed it off. Relax, honest work, just chasing cash. I didn't believe her. Without hesitation, I wired her every yuan I had saved, tutoring 800 in total. Please take it. Even if my family is poor, I can't let you travel broke. Promise me you'll call if anything happens. She accepted after a long pause, sending back only a thumbs-up emoji. A month later, she appeared at my campus gates, dusty, sweat-stained, yet her eyes burned brighter than the stars. Before I could speak, she tossed a thick envelope into my hands. Inside was a stack of crisp bills, at least 5,000 yuan. Where did this come from? My voice cracked. Michael's grin was cocky, almost mysterious. Caught a lucky break. Nothing big. Just take it. My mind exploded with panic. Michael Sullivan, you gambled, didn't you? She froze. The silence between us was deafening. Finally, she turned her head, muttering, "It was just for fun. Don't yell. Fun." My tears stung. You promised. If you touch gambling again, I'll cut your hands off myself. Do you believe me? My voice shook with rage. Michael gaped, caught off guard by the fury in my tone. After a long beat, she laughed half defensive. "Natalie Pierce, you've grown bold. Scolding your boss now. Should I hand you the gang leader crown?" I clenched my fists but forced the words out, quiet and stubborn. "Illegal things are off limits." My eyes blurred again. Her expression softened instantly. She rubbed her head flustered. Okay, enough. Don't cry. I swear I'll never touch it again." She raised her hand as if swearing in court. I sniffed my voice thick. "I get scholarships. I tutor. I even sell bubble tea. It's enough. Just live straight, Michael. That's all I ask." For a moment, I sounded like a weary mother scolding her wayward child. She groaned, but didn't argue. That evening, I walked her around campus. We strolled under shaded paths through the glowing library halls past the bustling gym. She looked around with wide eyes, like a kid seeing a dream for the first time. "Natalie," she whispered, "college life. It feels magical." I smiled. "Here, no one bullies me. No one sneers." Her laugh was rough self-mocking. "Too bad my brain's not like yours. I was always the screw-up. Books were never for me." I thought then, if only Michael had been born into a decent family, she wouldn't have needed to wear armor so young. She might have been the brightest one among us. As the semester wore on, our messages grew sparse. She claimed she was always busy chasing money, drifting from place to place with no stable bed. I filled my days with lectures and side jobs clinging to scholarships. One day, I was told I'd been selected for a financial aid grant, only to see it snatched away by a classmate with connections. The advisor pulled me aside, her words heavy with implication. "Be smart. Think of the bigger picture." I locked myself in the dorm bathroom, pressing a sleeve to my face as tears spilled hot and silent. My heart ached for Michael's voice, loud, brash, threatening to break the world in half for me. "Who dares touch my girl, I'll tear their heads off." But fear stopped me. If I called, she might storm here, fists blazing, and only make things worse. So I swallowed my bitterness and pushed harder. I poured lattes at the tea shop, dashed to tutoring jobs, collapsed into bed with aching bones. It was during one of those long shifts at the tea counter, shaking cups until my arms went numb, that my phone buzzed. Michael's voice blasted over the music in the background. "Natalie, I just inherited 10 million. Need an assistant. Get over here now." I blinked, sweat dripping down my neck. The blender roared, drowning her out. "What? Where I can't?" "Michael, I'm making bubble tea. 60 orders of iced matcha just came in." She cackled over the line, her voice wild and exultant, and I couldn't tell if she was joking, lying, or if by some impossible twist, the girl who once sold her blood had really stumbled into fortune. My arms were burning from shaking cup after cup of tea, my muscles screaming with each motion. Then Michael's voice blasted through the phone, wild as ever. "Bubble tea, my ass. You love this stuff, huh? Fine. Wait there. I'll just buy the whole damn shop for you. Done. The bubble tea place is yours." I froze mid-shake, staring at the foaming cup in my hand. Buy the shop. She had to be joking, or worse, had she been lured into some shady pyramid scheme. Less than half an hour later, 2 sleek black cars glided to a stop outside the storefront, their polished surfaces gleaming like mirrors. They were the kind of cars you only saw in magazines, the kind that screamed old money. Two men in immaculate black suits stepped out, their faces stone serious. They walked straight toward me as I fumbled with lemon slices behind the counter. "Are you Miss Pierce?" "Miss Natalie?" Pierce, one of them, asked, bowing slightly. Is this a pickup order?" "What number?" I stammered, still shaking the shaker. The man's expression didn't change. "Our young lady is waiting. She has sent us to escort you." His tone was courteous, reverent. My heart skipped. "Young lady? You mean—" "Michael Sullivan." "You must be joking," the man said smoothly, holding the door open with the precision of a five-star hotel concierge. "Please, this way." Still half in shock, I slid into the back seat. The leather swallowed me whole, soft and perfumed. The car pulled away. After a few minutes, I noticed the direction. My stomach tightened. Excuse me?" I ventured nervously. "This isn't the road to the airport." The driver's companion turned, smiling with professional warmth. "We're not going to the airport, Miss Pierce. We're flying private." "Private. Jet." The words rattled in my head like loose screws. Sure enough, we arrived at a private airstrip where a gleaming plane waited like something out of a dream. Hours later, I was ushered into a sprawling estate. Fountains arched in glittering arcs, lawns stretched green and endless, and lines of uniformed staff bowed in perfect unison. "Welcome home, Miss Pierce," they chorused. My breath caught. A graceful woman approached, her expression both elegant and tender. She clasped my hands as though we were family. "You must be Natalie. What a lovely child. Our Michael speaks of you constantly, her dearest friend. Please come in." I barely managed a bow. My voice caught in my throat. "Dearest friend." What was happening? Then I heard footsteps. My head snapped up. There she was, Michael Sullivan. Gone were the neon streaks and ripped jeans. Her hair was now chestnut brown, soft waves cascading over her shoulders. She wore a designer dress tailored to perfection, delicate sandals on her feet. Makeup touched her face lightly enough to highlight her sharp eyes and defiant tilt of her chin. The same Michael I knew, but draped in wealth, radiance, and poise. She bounded down the staircase, all grace abandoned, and crushed me in a bear hug. "Natalie, I missed you so damn much." My knees went weak. "Michael, what is all this?" She grinned, smug and triumphant. "Surprise, your girls made it big. I'm back where I belong. Turns out I really am the heiress." She slung an arm around my shoulder and gestured proudly toward the elegant woman. "That's my mother." Then she pointed to a tall man in a perfectly cut suit, his features undeniably similar to hers. "And that's my brother." The pieces clicked into place. Michael Sullivan, the fierce street queen, who once sold her blood to pay my hospital bill, was in fact the lost daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the city. Kidnapped years ago, raised by a gambler only recently discovered by chance encounter in Harbor City. Her mother's voice was warm, insistent. "You must be hungry. What would you like, dear? We'll have the staff prepare anything you wish." Still dazed, I blurted the first thing that came to mind. "Hot pot." Michael's mother didn't miss a beat. "Of course." She turned gracefully. "Mr. Wu, see to it at once." An hour later, I sat at a dining table longer than any conference room I'd ever seen, staring at a single golden-rimmed pot bubbling at the center. Steam rose thick with spices. but the contents made me nearly choke. Australian lobster abalone Wagyu beef, sliced paper-thin glossy black truffle balls all simmering in broth richer than anything I'd ever tasted. Michael leaned back smirking as if this were nothing. "Told you, Natalie. Stick with me, and life will always be spicy." I clutched my chopsticks, heart pounding, unable to decide if this was a dream or the start of a life I wasn't prepared to face. Hot pot. "This is hot pot," I whispered, staring at the golden cauldron bubbling with lobster tails and abalone. My imagination couldn't keep up. After the feast, Michael grabbed my wrist and dragged me outside like a storm. "Come on, we're going shopping. Look at what you're wearing. Does that outfit suit your status?" Before I could protest, we barreled into Harbor City's most luxurious mall. She plucked dresses from racks, holding them up against me. This one. "Do you like it?" I glanced at the tag. 4 zeros trailed behind the number. My knees nearly buckled. "Michael. This is insane. Too expensive." She waved me off like a gnat. "Just say if you like it. That's all." With a snap of her fingers, she told the manager, "We'll take the whole boutique. Give her everything." Before I caught my breath, she pressed 2 sets of keys into my palm. "This one's for a car to get you to class. The other, a riverside villa near your campus. Stay there, it's yours." I stood frozen. "Wait, you're this rich?" Michael blinked innocently. "Kind of. My parents gave me $10 million to spend. Just pocket change." My voice cracked into a near shriek. $10 million. Even in online games, I'd never dared dream of such numbers. "Oh, and my brother wired me another $5 million today," she added casually. I wasn't sure we were even using the same currency anymore. The truth was surreal. The parents and brother who had found her again were determined to pour 20 years of lost love into her all at once. Since she'd never had the chance for a proper education, they hired elite tutors, enrolling her in a private business academy to polish her into a society jewel. Days blurred into madness. Designer shopping sprees, private showings, even entire stores bought out for the thrill. I should have felt grounded, but instead I floated dizzy from the whirlwind. And then came the photos. Michael's mother began arranging introductions, handsome pedigreed heirs with impeccable credentials. Stacks of portraits arrived, men with crisp suits and perfect smiles. My heart twisted. Was my one anchor about to be stolen by some stranger in a tailored tux? I clung to Michael's arm, pouting. "If you find a man, will you stop taking care of me?" She tousled my hair, laughing. "Relax, you'll always be the real deal. No one replaces you. You're permanent." She shoved the stack of photos at me. "Here, pick one. I'll share." "Fair's fair, right?" Tears pricked my eyes. "Michael, you're my one and only sister. Irreplaceable." I squeezed her arm like a child clutching a lifeline. She puffed her chest proudly. "Damn right. I'm the most loyal person on earth." But her mind was already racing ahead. First things first, that worthless man who raised me, he's not setting foot in the company. I'll cut him off clean. Next, those wannabe thugs, I'll set them up in an entertainment agency. Rebrand them, get them streaming, polish their image. Already got the name Sweet Spectrum. Sounds marketable, huh? Her ambition scared me with its sharpness. "And me?" I asked quietly. Michael hooked a finger under my chin, pulling me close. You You stay by my side. I shook my head. That's not enough. What if one day you get distracted by someone else? I need security. Michael. Her eyes gleamed sly. Oh, I get it. You need a man, I gaped. That's not what I... Don't worry, I'll find you one. Gorgeous, reliable, premium quality. Full package. I laughed nervously, playing along. Fine, but only if he's top shelf. That night, Michael made good on her promise. Too good, her older brother, devastatingly handsome with the cold aura of a CEO, ripped straight from a novel, was literally dragged into my room, tied like cargo. He landed on the bed with a thud, eyes blazing daggers. My phone buzzed. Michael's voice shrieked with delight. Well, is he good enough? If you win him over, you win me. And if you win me, you get this whole house too. Spend all you want. I stared at the furious man glaring from my bed, my legs turning to jelly. My chest heaved. Michael Sullivan, I whispered. You've gone way too far this time. But my heart was already pounding with something that felt dangerously close to fate. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.